Hello there, squirrels. I decided I better come on and read. The refrigerator man's supposed to come and check out. My fridge has not been. It's working, and the freezer, but not as cold, either one, as it should be. So, y'all help me pray it's a easy and inexpensive fix. It's 100 years old. It's as old as this mobile home. As far as I know, I don't think Dad ever replaced it. So, my appliance is from 1986, and my washer and dryer. My stove has been replaced. But anyway, we're not here to talk about appliances. We're here to read Chapter 7, The House of Lurking Death. And I forgot to bring something to drink. I just came in here to film a Happy Meal and decided I better do this. But I should have brought some tea or something. "What?" began Tuppence, and then stopped. She had just entered the private office of Mr. Blunt from the adjoining one marked Clerks, and was surprised to behold her lord and master with his eye riveted to the private peephole into the outer office. "Shh," said Tommy warningly. "Didn't you hear the buzzer? It's a girl. Rather a nice girl, in fact. She looks to me a frightfully nice girl. Albert is telling her all that tosh about my being engaged to Scotland Yard." "Let me see," demanded Tuppence. Somewhat unwillingly, Tommy moved aside. Tuppence, in her turn, glued her eye to the peephole. I think it's so funny they got peepholes. "She's not bad," admitted Tuppence, "and her clothes are simply the latest shout." "She's perfectly lovely," said Tommy. "She's like those girls Mason writes about, you know. Frightfully sympathetic and beautiful and distinctly intelligent without being too saucy, I think. Yes? I certainly think I shall be the great Hinaud this morning." Said Tuppence. "If there's one detective out of all the others whom you are most unlike, I should say it is Hinaud. Can you do the lightning changes of personality? Can you be the great comedian, the little gutter boy, the serious and sympathetic friend, all in 5 minutes?" "I know this," said Tommy, rapping sharply on the desk. "I'm the captain of the ship, and don't you forget it, Tuppence. I'm going to have her in." He pressed the buzzer on his desk. Albert appeared, ushering in the client. The girl stopped in the doorway as though undecided. Tommy came forward. "Come in, mademoiselle," he said kindly, "and seat yourself here." Tuppence choked audibly, and Tommy turned upon her with a swift change of manner. His tone was menacing. "You spoke, Miss Robinson?" "Ah, no, I thought not." He turned back to the girl. We will not be serious or formal," he said. "You will just tell me all about it, and then we will discuss the best way to help you." "You're very kind," said the girl. "Excuse me, but are you a foreigner?" A fresh choke from Tuppence. Tommy glared in her direction out of the corner of his eye. "Not exactly," he said with difficulty. "But of late years I have worked a good deal abroad. My methods are the methods of the Surete." "Oh!" The girl seemed impressed. She was, as Tommy had indicated, a very charming girl, young and slim, with a trace of golden hair peeping out from under her little brown felt hat and big serious gray eyes. That she was nervous could be plainly seen. Her little hands were twisting themselves together, and she kept clasping and unclasping the catch of her lacquer red handbag. "First of all, Mr. Blunt, I must tell you that my name is Lois Hargreaves. I live in a great rambling old-fashioned house called Thornley Grange. It's in the heart of the country. There's the village of Thornley nearby, but it's very small and insignificant. There's plenty of hunting in winter, and we get tennis in summer. I have never felt lonely there. Indeed, I much prefer country to town life. I tell you this so that you may realize that in a country village like ours, everything that happens is of supreme importance. About a week ago, I got a box of chocolates sent through the post. There was nothing inside to indicate whom they came from. Now, I myself am not particularly fond of chocolates, but the others in the house are, and the box was passed around. As a result, everyone who had eaten any chocolates was taken ill. We sent for the doctor, and after various inquiries as to what other things had been eaten, he took the remains of the box away with him and had them analyzed. Mr. Blunt, those chocolates contained arsenic, not enough to kill anyone, but enough to make anyone quite ill. Extraordinary, commented Tommy. Dr. Burrell was very excited over the matter. It seems that this was the third occurrence of the kind in the neighborhood. In each case, a big house was selected and the inmates were taken ill after eating the mysterious chocolates. It looked as though some local person of weak intellect was playing a particularly fiendish practical joke. Quite so, Miss Hargreaves. Dr. Burrell put it down to socialist agitation, rather absurdly, I thought, but there are one or two malcontents in Thornley Village, and it seemed possible they might have had something to do with it. Dr. Burrell was very keen that I should put the whole thing in the hands of the police. A very natural suggestion, said Tommy, but you have not done so, I gather, Miss Hargreaves. No, admitted the girl, I hate the fuss and the publicity that would ensue, and you see, I know our local inspector. I can never imagine him finding out anything. I've often seen your advertisements, and I told Dr. Burrell it would be much better to call in a private detective. I see. You say a great deal about discretion in your advertisement. I take that to mean that, well, that you would not make anything public without my consent. Tommy looked at her curiously, but it was Tuppence who spoke. I think, she said quietly, that it would be as well if Miss Hargreaves told us everything. She laid especial stress upon the last word, and Lois Hargreaves flushed nervously. Yes, said Tommy quickly, Miss Robinson is right. You must tell us everything. You will not, she hesitated. Everything you say is understood to be strictly in confidence. Thank you. I know that I ought to have been quite frank with you. I have a reason for not going to the public, Mr. Blunt. That box of chocolates was sent by someone in our house. How do you know that, mademoiselle? It's very simple. I've got a habit of drawing a certain little silly thing. 3 fish intertwined whenever I have a pencil in my hand. A parcel of silk stockings arrived from a certain shop in London not long ago. We were at the breakfast table. I'd just been marking something in the newspaper, and without thinking I began to draw my silly little fish on the label of the parcel before cutting the string and opening it. I thought no more about the matter, but when I was examining the piece of brown paper in which the chocolates had been sent, I caught sight of the corner of the original label, most of which had been torn off. My silly little drawing was on it. Tommy drew his chair forward. That's very serious. It creates, as you say, a very strong presumption that the sender of the chocolates is a member of your household. But you will forgive me if I say I still do not see why that fact should render you indisposed to call in the police. Lois Hargreaves looked him squarely in the face. I will tell you, Mr. Blunt, I may want the whole thing hushed up. Tommy retired gracefully from the position. In that case, he murmured, we know where we are. I see, Miss Hargreaves, that you are not disposed to tell me who it is you suspect. I suspect no one, but there are possibilities. Quite so. Now will you describe the household to me in detail? The servants, with the exception of the parlor maid, are all old ones who have been with us many years. I must explain to you, Mr. Blunt, that I was brought up by my aunt, Lady Radcliffe, who was extremely wealthy. Her husband made a big fortune and was knighted. It was he who bought Thornley Grange, but he died 2 years after going there, and it was then that Lady Radcliffe sent for me to come and make my home with her. I was her only living relation. The other inmate of the house was Dennis Radcliffe, her husband's nephew. I have always called him cousin, but of course he's really nothing of the kind. Aunt Lucy always said openly that she intended to leave her money, with the exception of a small provision for me, to Dennis. It was Radcliffe money, she said, and ought to go to a Radcliffe. However, when Dennis was 22, she quarreled violently with him over some debts that he had run up, I think. When she died a year later, I was astonished to find that she had made a will leaving all her money to me. It was, I know, a great blow to Dennis, and I felt very badly about it. I would have given him the money if he would have taken it, but it seems as that kind of thing can't be done. However, as soon as I was 21, I made a will leaving it all to him. That's the least I can do. So if I'm run over by a motor, Dennis will come into his own. Exactly, said Tommy. And when were you 21, if I may ask the question? Just 3 weeks ago. Ah, said Tommy. Now, who was in the house when the chocolates came? Servants or others? Both. The servants, as I say, have been with us some time. There is old Mrs. Holloway, the cook, and her niece Rose, the kitchen maid. Then there are 2 elderly housemaids, and Hannah, who was my aunt's maid, and who had always been devoted to me. The parlor maid is called Esther Quaint, and seems a very nice, quiet girl. As for ourselves, there is a Miss Logan, who was Aunt Lucy's companion, and who runs the house for me and Captain Radcliffe Dennis, you know, whom I told you about. There is a girl called Mary Chilcott, an old school friend of mine, who is staying with us. Tommy thought for a moment. That all seems fairly clear and straightforward, Miss Hargreaves, he said after a minute or two. I take it you have no special reason for attaching suspicion more to one person than another? You're only afraid it might prove to be not a servant, shall we say? That is it exactly, Mr. Blunt. I've honestly no idea who used that piece of brown paper. The handwriting was printed. There seems only one thing to be done, said Tommy. I must be on the spot. I suggest that you prepare the way for the arrival of, say, Mr. and Miss Van Duzen, American friends of yours. Will you be able to do that quite naturally? Oh, yes, there will be no difficulty at all. When will you come down? Tomorrow or day after? Tomorrow, if you please. There's no time to waste. That is settled, then. The girl rose and held out her hand. One thing, Miss Hargreaves, not a word, mind, to anyone at all, that we are not what we seem. What do you think of it, Tuppence? He asked when he returned from showing the visitor out. I don't like it, said Tuppence decidedly. Especially I don't like the chocolates having so little arsenic in them. Doggone, I'm going to have to stop. I'll be back.